Now we straight chillin', serial killing, three cool villains on the mic, got you reeling. 5-star rated from the floor to the ceiling. If you catch a 1-star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ on the ones and twos, by the name Beelzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all over two, and prepare to hear the legend of the straight chillin' crew.
What up, nerds, and welcome to another merry episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode 402, recorded on Sunday, December 18th, 2022. Tonight, we're talking about the original 1974 Black Christmas. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show tonight. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy Randu. How do?
Hello? Hello? Hello?
It's the Mona!
Hello?
Randu's the
Hello?
Mona!
Elizabeth, hello? How's it going, buddy?
Oh, pretty good. I'm excited to revisit this one with you, sir. It's been 8 damn years.
So obviously our opinions will have changed vastly, I'm sure.
Nah, identical. Copy paste. Copy paste.
Yeah. This ain't different.
Last but not least, calling in from the Saxonville, Florida, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
Oh, what up? It's your boy. You got garlic in your soul, Mr. Bish. Stains.
Garlic stains. We've all been
Tis
there.
Tis the season, boys. Here we go. Last week.
Dies tonight!
Christmas dies tonight as far as Straight Chilling is concerned.
Christmas dies tonight. Christmas dies tonight, boys. Well, not true. We have one Christmas minicast coming up after this.
You're right.
And also one Christmas YouTube. But we'll talk about that. I know.
That conversation happens in about 30 seconds,
Well,
buddy.
Bob, I just had to correct you. I just had to correct you.
Better hold on to your butt.
Who told you you can eat my cookies?
Those are my cookies. Randy, what time did you start drinking today?
10 a.m. Hard and fast and ain't stopped since.
And I got the pictures to prove it.
Apparently, I found out as of logging in today that you guys have been sending pictures of me very, very drinking over the course of today.
You were sending those pictures.
You sent me some.
I was not.
Dude.
Okay, well then Becky stole my phone, obviously.
You sent me...
Really?
I sent you nothing.
You sent me pictures.
You sent a shit ton of
2
pictures.
2 p.m. or something?
Check your phone right now.
Dude, it was you.
I'm checking my phone right now.
Because you had
It
glasses.
was you, dude.
You had glasses on your neck, and I said, hey, buddy.
Yeah, no, those I did.
Yeah.
Those I did send, yes.
Yeah.
But there were other photos that I was not aware of being taken of me because, we live in a world of terror, and so my photo was taken without my consent and sent to you. So that's what's
It's true. It's true. That's your significant other right there, coming in clutch per usual. Oh boy! All right, let's jump into some housekeeping real quick. Our January poll is currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we talk about in January. The theme for January is shit we missed last year. The 3 movies to vote between are The Menu, Barbarian, and Smile.
Oh. Whoa, Bob, how are those numbers looking?
Pretty damn consistent. Barbarian has like 60% of the vote, and The Menu and Smile are tied with about 20% there.
Damn, I was curious if, as time went on, if people would change their vote to The Menu since it was kind of new when we picked this, it's still pretty fresh.
Slowly pick up
people
steam.
Really want us to talk about the goddamn Barbarian.
It's true.
Dude, that blew people's shorts in half.
Blew their shorts.
From the massive loads that were dropping.
Oh my God.
I never
dropped all the loads I'm squirting.
I guess Menu didn't have quite the same effect.
Fewer loads were dropped. During the menu. Get your vote in before the end of December, and we'll see what we're talking about this January. Speaking of mini-casts, we are dropping a brand new mini-cast on Friday, December 23rd.
That's just the kind of prick I am.
It is just the kind of prick I am. I'm talking about that new Shudder hotness, Christmas Bloody Christmas. Ooh, that new Joe Begos movie. Joe Begos.
That's a Christmas horror film on Shudder, right?
That is true. That's what it is.
There are a number.
Brand new. Yeah, there's a few.
This also has a very limited theatrical run happening. It'd probably be a lot of fun to watch this in theaters, to be honest with you. So catch that if you can. The movie's basically about a robotic mall Santa that goes rogue and starts murdering folks. That's
cool.
No way, dude.
Like Chopping Mall.
A Santa who kills people? I don't believe.
But it's like the Terminator.
That anyone. Terminator Santa.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Terminator.
So there's not one original element in this film, is what you're telling me.
What I'm telling you is to watch it and listen to the minicast.
All right.
That's a good capitalist. Let's go.
That's a good little capitalist.
Jungle Cap.
If we were good capitalists, we'd be sponsored by Shudder by now. What are we doing?
We'd be sponsored by anybody.
We're not very good capitalists.
Really?
Good call.
So that minicast is dropping Friday, December 23rd on Patreon. If you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to our whole back catalog of minicast, and there's a shitload of them on there for you right now. What else do we have going on? Speaking of Patreon bullshit, we opened up the You Pick the Flick tier today, and holy schnickers.
I heard there was some shady stuff going on.
There wasn't.
Shady?
There wasn't.
Bob, your partner.
I heard Dominion voting machines failed us.
Allegedly.
Your partner once again secured a spot. No problem.
Allegedly.
No problem whatsoever.
She's just good, man. I can't help it.
I know. She really is.
I'm as hands off with it as I could possibly be. Justin was in control of it today. I didn't even know what time it was going to drop. It was all in Juice's hands. And she still got one somehow. So.
I didn't cheat, honey. I promise. I didn't even use my hands.
I did just my tongue. So congratulations.
You did not help yourself.
Congratulations to Naderade, Alice, Hyderberg, Miles, and Matt for grabbing a U pick for the first quarter of 2023. Just send in those movie picks to us whenever you decide what you want us to talk about, and we'll work you into our schedule.
All right.
Also, just wanted to thank everybody for hanging out this past Friday for our Joe Bob watch party. It's probably the last thing Joe Bob's going to do with Shudder for the year. That's typically how it rolls. We had a really solid turnout. And actually, both the movies were Christmas related. He showed Don't Open Till Christmas and also A Christmas Horror Story. So it was a solid double feature.
But you called.
I called them both. Yeah,
good
somehow.
call,
Both of them. I kind of saw like Don't Open Till Christmas coming because it's like a brand new thing.
Yeah.
I know it's on Shudder these days. But man, I did not see I'm sorry, not American Horror Story. What is the
Christmas Horror Story?
What is the Christmas Horror Story? Yeah, I didn't see that one coming. You nailed that.
Yeah,
which is awesome because in the past, didn't he do like Phantasm one year or something? That
he likes to swerve it hard.
Yeah. He did some like swamp movie that I can't remember the name. Like shit that has nothing to do with Christmas, which is kind of a bummer.
Dick Bibbs, he's a tricky one sometimes. I taught him that.
He's a tricky one.
Dick
Mr. Bibbs.
Yeah.
So thanks for hanging out this last Friday, everybody that was able to join. It was dope. We are also dropping a brand new episode of Let's Get Physical Media. Actually, it's already out by the time this episode airs. Mikey and I are talking about our November poll picks, or our November pickups is what we're talking about.
What?
November.
I'm the drunk one.
I'll have to audit that one as well.
Dude, it's
oh god,
it's the bloodbath of the year, buddy. If you wanted to audit any episode, it's this one.
Holy shit, Bob! I love hearing Bob talk about his Blu-ray collection like he's a doomsday prepper getting fucking saltines. It's like I'm gonna be out here watching Black Christmas Steelbook while you fuckers are eating each other.
It's true. That's how it's going to roll. The end of the world.
I hope so.
I hope so, too.
You hope so?
We all hope so. If you are interested in collecting Blu-rays, 4Ks, DVDs, check out Let's Get Physical Media. Anywhere you get your podcasts. Mikey and I talk about a lot of horror stuff. This episode specifically, we spent a good time on Criterion releases because it was the half-off Criterion sale at Barnes & Noble. Every November they do that, in July. So check that out. Yo.
How many... Give me a number. How many are you in the hole for this month?
You're going to have to listen to the episode, buddy.
Where did Bob go wrong? Were he and his friends sifting way too long through those Blu-ray bins? And it gets worse, he'll have no jet ski, wasting all his dough on those DVDs.
Bob, do I need to pull the numbers back up?
No, thank God, no. We really
I don't think anybody wants that.
Nobody wants it. I got two more things real quick. We also just dropped a brand new documentary that fully covers the origins of this podcast and how it has evolved over the past 8 years. It is on YouTube for your watching pleasure. It is called Solid 1 Star. We had a lot of people watch it and chime in, so thanks to everybody that was able to watch that. And it's almost an hour long, so it's a bit of an undertaking. And we got a lot of positive feedback over this past week too, so that was really really nice to hear.
I can't believe it's only been out a week.
I know, right?
Yeah, really.
What is time? I don't know.
But thanks everybody.
It only took like months to put together, of course.
Yeah,
the bulk of a year. You know,
thanks for everyone for watching and commenting and hitting us up on Slack and everywhere. We really appreciate that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Very sweet. So yeah, check that out on YouTube. Solid 1 Star, a straight chilling documentary. Last thing I got here, I recently was a guest on our good friends over at A Cut Above horror podcast. We were talking about The Lodge, which of course is one of my personal favorite movies.
Oh, Bob,
as we all know.
I listened to that episode. I love to hear you change your opinion.
Yeah, just changing the song, changing my tune. So check that out. Check out A Cut Above everywhere you get your podcasts if you want to hear my thoughts on The Lodge. And that's all I got. Anything you guys want to mention? Did I forget anything?
Oh, yeah, you forgot something.
I did.
So,
yep.
You fucking forgot.
This is like another week where we somehow kind of unplanned just have something dropping every day this week.
Day, yeah.
Jesus Christ, what is wrong with us?
I don't know.
I don't know.
We
but
might
also,
need to chill the fuck out.
So after this episode comes out, so this comes out on Wednesday. On Thursday, we are dropping a brand new YouTube video. This is going to be another Creature Corners, Creature Comforts. Oh my God, Bob fucked my mind. Bob said that on the 400th episode, and now it's stuck in my mind.
Yes.
Creature Comforts YouTube episode.
Oh God, no!
This is where I'm typically joined by a guest to discuss something that's kind of horror adjacent. This month, I am talking with our good friend Nicole from the Light and Shadow podcast about A Christmas Carol, the kind of whole property, the book, and a lot of the different films and some of the differences and some of the traditions. It kind of
the whole capitalist endeavor that is.
Yeah, dude. Every year there's like Carol. 3 or 4 of those things that drop. But yeah, we're going to be talking about the good ones, of course, and the book, the novel, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, check that out on our YouTube page, youtube.com/straight chilling podcast. And that is all I have.
Our house is clean.
Oh shit.
This house is clean.
All right.
Wow.
Let's get into the main feature. We're talking about the original 1974 Black Christmas, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Bob, how many editions of this do you have, and which one are you reading?
I have 2. Scream Factory.
Only 2, eh?
Scream Factory put this out on Blu-ray maybe like 5 years ago. They just put it out on 4K like a week or 2 ago. So I watched the new 4K. It is extremely squeaky motherfucking clean. I will say When we talked about this movie for the first time 8 years ago, it was, I think, only on DVD. It was like not a good copy. I think it might have been a VHS rip. It was like, I'm pretty sure one of us like just torrented a terrible copy of it. I think that's what we were talking about 8 years ago.
Hello?
But yeah, I recommend picking this up. The Blu-ray is super easy to find and pretty affordable. The 4K costs a few bucks more. There's definitely a lot more bonus features on the 4K though, if that means anything to you. But it's easy to find if you want to. It's also streaming on Shudder, so you can just watch it on Shudder as well.
I feel like this movie's reputation has resurged greatly in the last 8 or more years.
I think so. There's been some remakes. There was one that came out like 2 years ago or something. But yeah, people
2006 as well.
This thing's reputation has certainly come up recently.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah,
probably because of us, our original.
Yeah, definitely.
It's because we covered it.
Yeah, everybody listened to that very accessible episode.
Let's not. You don't have to do that.
Which I wanted. Well, we'll get there. So, Black Christmas, 1974, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 38 minutes. This was directed by Bob Clark. This was written by Roy Moore. Stars Olivia Hussey, Keir Dullea, Margot Kidder, John motherfucking Saxon is also in this. Some other folks as well.
Yes.
Plot synopsis brought to you by the back of the box is as follows. The college town of Bedford is receiving an unwelcome guest this Christmas. As the residents of sorority house Pi Kappa Sigma prepare for the festive season, a stranger begins to stalk the house. A series of obscene phone calls start to plague the sorority, and it becomes clear that a psychopath has more than merriment on his mind. As the police try to trace the phone calls, they discover that nothing is as it seems during this Black Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
We've all seen this before. I probably multiple times, I'm sure. Gentlemen, would you recommend people check this out? Randy, why don't you kick us off?
Yes, I would. I have seen this film, as you've mentioned, a number of times, and I would say probably at least once every other year. I don't know that I see it annually, but I do make a point to kind of like watch it every so often. And yeah, this is for Christmas viewing, you could do a fuck ton, and for slasher viewing, it's kind of necessary for you to sort of get the whole context of where slasher kind of like progenited from. Like, it's not the first for slasher by any means. Psycho exists, other films exist, but it is definitely one that sort of like is a large, significant footnote on the road to the 80s slasher boom. So yes, absolute necessary watching for any horror fan, and certainly a pretty good Christmas horror film to check out.
Awesome. Juice, what about you?
Yeah, so I actually wasn't on the original episode for this. This is one of the earliest episodes that was ever done, and I was not on that. And so I actually didn't watch this until like within the past few years. I'm pretty sure I'm, in one of our episodes around Christmas time, you can hear me talk about it and what you've been watching for the first time. And at that time, I watched it with the reputation already kind of growing, especially you guys talked about it a lot. And I watched it for the first time with that kind of going in like, oh, people really like this, which usually kind of lowers like the general, because it doesn't live up to the hype, Mm-hmm. I was so impressed. I remember watching this for the first time. I was so impressed. Typically a 70s guy. I'm not real big into like films from the 70s. And this is like an old time slasher. And I was just so impressed by it. And since then, I think I've kind of watched it every year since then for Christmas, which hasn't been that many, but I would recommend you check this out. If you're a horror fan, you don't even if you don't like slashers, I think this is a good watch for you. Especially if you watch slashers, definitely check this out. But this is a great watch and very influential, but it just holds up on its own. I feel like this could come out now. It kind of reminded me of House of the Devil. If it had that same kind of look, I think somebody could sell it as like it came out now and this is part of the thing. Like I absolutely believe that. So yeah, I definitely recommend that you check this film out for sure. Yeah.
Bob, how about you?
Yeah, this is definitely an annual watch for me. I think if you're a horror fan, it's really mandatory viewing. it definitely like helped set the gold standard. It might just be the gold standard for slashers, honestly. It hits all the check marks that you want, and it also doesn't have any of the like real low hanging fruit, like lowbrow shit that some of the movies that came after it that were trying to copy it definitely were plagued with, and I think help give the general horror genre kind of a bad name. I think this movie's got a lot of class. It was definitely progressive when it came out, and like if it came out today, it would somehow be even more progressive, which is fucking insane. We'll talk about all that as well. Yeah, check it out. You owe it to yourself to watch it, I think. So that sounds like a hearty recommendation across the board from the Straight Chilling crew.
All right.
We are going to spoil the shit out of this movie, and here comes your warning.
Spoiler warning.
This is one of those moments where I really, really miss having Cesar on the show because I'd want him to read this in like Billy's voice.
Yeah.
Which would be
which
insane.
one?
Yeah.
Exactly.
All of them at once.
Agnes Billy. Yeah.
I also want to point out this is our last Christmas episode, so I am rocking the custom made.
I see that.
You know.
And you got some jingle jangle light ups on your neck there.
Yeah. So this is a sweater made by Miss Alice. Thank you again for our 400th, but it's Christmas themed, so I had to watch it or wear it for that. So it is the Bigfoot sweater, of course.
Yes. Wearing that Franzoni freshness.
Yeah, behind the scenes. I'm also eating what my sister calls Christmas crack, which is just a lot of sugar.
Which is just crack.
Which is just crack. Sprinkle with some sugar.
My sister loves to get people hooked on crack.
First cookie's free.
Hey, want to go get some jujubes with me?
No.
Nobody.
That's code.
Nobody ever does. I do have the full plot synopsis typed up.
Give it to me, Bob.
Pop it on me.
Here we go. An unseen assailant climbs up the trellis of a sorority house and enters the attic. The girls inside are having a wonderful Christmas party and receive an obscene phone call where they all listen in. The caller moans, howls, and threatens them in various voices, whereupon the alcoholic house mother, Miss Mack, returns home and the girls gift her a negligee for Christmas. One of the girls, Claire, goes upstairs to pack and is suffocated with a plastic dress bag by the assailant. She's then taken up into the attic and placed in a rocking chair by the window. The following morning, Claire's father arrives to pick her up but can't find her. He meets Miss Mack at the sorority house, and they look for her. Later that day, another sorority girl, Jess, meets her boyfriend Peter at the conservatory and tells him she's pregnant and plans on getting an abortion. He reacts poorly and says she can't. Mr. Harrison then goes to the police and reports Claire missing. They don't take him seriously until later that night. Claire's boyfriend storms the station and demands action be taken. The police also find out a high school girl has gone missing. The police and several locals then go looking for the missing girls in the park. While Miss Mack discovers Claire's body in the attic. The killer dispatches Miss Mack with a giant hook. Jess receives another scary phone call and files a report with the police, who decide to tap her phone so they can trace the call. Peter then proposes to Jess, and she says no. This angers him even more. A drunken Barb wakes up in the middle of the night in fright. She tells Jess she dreamed there was a man in her room. Jess puts her back to bed and goes outside to listen to some carolers. The killer sneaks into Barb's room and stabs her with a glass unicorn. Jess receives another lewd phone call, but it wasn't quite long enough for the police to trace. The caller said things Peter had said earlier that night. Jess and Phil lock every door and window in the house. Phil goes to check on Barb and is killed off screen. Jess gets one final call long enough to be traced. The sergeant warns her that the calls are coming from inside the house instead of leaving. She goes upstairs looking for her friends and finds the killer. She's chased all the way down to the basement and locks herself in. Peter then shows up and breaks one of the basement windows, crawls in to find her. He asks what's wrong. As the camera cuts, the police then enter into the basement and find Jess holding a dead Peter. She killed him, and we are to believe he has been the killer all along. The cops leave Jess tucked in bed, all alone in the sorority house, as we then hear the phone ringing yet again, leaving Jess's fate undetermined. Roll them credits, boys.
Oh, God. Roll them credits.
Well, there's a little bit more, too. Not just the phone ringing, but old boss is still up in the attic.
They do. Yeah, somebody closes the attic door. We do see that.
Well, and he's whispering about Agnes and shit.
Yeah. There's,
the killer's on
camera,
the loose,
but yes.
for sure. Yeah. I think this movie does a hell of a lot to present Peter as a gigantic red herring.
Oh my God! And a gaping asshole,
and a massive fucking asshole.
One might call him a cooter, but we'll get to that.
That's another conversation entirely.
Coming in about an hour. But I don't think we ever really see the killer on screen. I mean, we see like his eyeball and stuff, but like I don't think he's one of the characters walking around like chatting with anybody.
I don't think so. Mm-mm.
That's one of the interesting things about this movie is that you have this unseen killer that is absolutely without resolution. And so you think about this movie and then the obvious outcropping that is Halloween in 1978. And how that sort of like, while you do know who the killer is, you don't know what happens to him at the end of that film. Sort of like the ending on a killer on the loose. The killer on the loose thing never ends in these two movies, and I think that is like that is a lost art within the slasher movie genre, at least for some time. Like it's kind of like anticipated that like after a while that the slasher will of course come back because we get sequel after sequel after sequel and people have become savvy enough to know like, he's maybe dead for now. But at this time, it was not really like an established canonical thing that you could anticipate. And so what they left you with is like just totally unsatisfying and terrifying ending that is, all of these things have not ended and we don't know what happens next. You just gotta hope for the best.
I think it's
so satisfying for the horror genre.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, this is what so many people just can't get through their fucking heads these days. Idiots. They like fucking David Gordon Green looking at your head ass. But
your head and your ass.
Imagine the whole and fucking Rob Zombie head ass. Imagine a prequel movie about Billy and what happens with Agnes and all this shit. It's like, no.
You don't have to imagine that, actually, because they made it in 2006.
Oh, no.
In 2006, they go to great length to rationalize everything that you hear off screen in this movie. And here's the thing. Bob, I'm sorry, Bob, are you going to say something about that?
Well, just a bit of trivia because like I agree with you that the 2006 remake is not great because they explain the origins of Billy and like who Agnes is and like his childhood and stuff. But like to defend that a bit, so like Bob Clark, when he made this movie, he had that entire backstory written out for Billy. It's not in the movie, but it definitely informs the shit that he says on the phone calls.
I do have a question about that then.
Okay.
The yellow kid is in his notes.
I doubt that jaundice was in his notes, but like
thank you for that, like, at least
the backstory of Billy, as far as I can recall it, is like his parents abused him and like kept him in the attic, and then he went nuts and like killed his parents, tried to kill his sister Agnes, but she got away, so he's like obsessed with killing these girls in place of his sister that got away. That's why he stays in the attic. There's like
that's just not interesting.
You don't need to know it. You don't want to know.
That's
the
thing, because you lose any kind of atmosphere. People cannot create a fucking atmosphere. They don't understand emotion and mood. And so instead of replacements for those things of like completely like it's this lack of being able to create a story, because it's like I want to create a mood, but I don't know how to do that, so I have to hammer something home. Like I have to give you the gore. I have to give you as much like backstory as possible, because they're just to me, it's just this huge red flag for an incapable storyteller.
Yeah,
is what it comes down to.
I love that Bob Clark wrote that, but like knew he didn't need to show it to make the movie effective or terrifying.
Exactly. People do that all the time, where you'll see a writer's notes where it's like, so they understand the motivations of why somebody would do that, but it doesn't have to
character
do with
Bibles.
their story. Yeah.
Like, no, I totally agree, but I do want to also on a very, very loosely defend the 2006 version, because while it did sort of like, it expounded on all that stuff, it took all those notes and made them canonical and did all that stuff that I don't think is necessary and I thought was really dumb on some level. But what's clear about that version of this movie is that they love the fuck out of Black Christmas 1974. They love it. And they really try, like, they're rationalizing it because at that time there was not a propensity to lean into ambiguity. You know, in that time we were looking at Saws where everything was about like, everything has to click at the end. Everything has to, whether if it's a twist or not, it has to click at least at the end. And yeah, unlike, so like we were like, it's supposed to be this thing where you find out like everything is recontextualized by the things you learn throughout the movie. But the thing is, it doesn't, the things that are being used to recontextualize are so bombastic in that version, and they go a lot further than I think what Rob's describing as Bob Clark's original. I'm sure
they do.
It's definitely further than what you just described. Anyway,
there's also a little bit more trivia here. So in just before, I think it was like 2005, Bob Clark was writing a sequel to this movie that he planned on directing, and then he passed away in a terrible car accident. And then they ended up doing a bit of a remake. So unfortunately we never got to see what he would have done with a sequel. But I think they tried to like honor him by taking his notes and like including them in that movie. I don't know that it doesn't have
that makes a kind of sense.
It doesn't have the class or like the tact that this original movie has. I also think this movie like feels like a Christmas movie. Like the story at hand doesn't have much to do with Christmas. It just happens during Christmas, and a lot of these girls are like trying to go home for Christmas for the holidays. But like it feels like a fucking Christmas movie. And like it's like shot on film, obviously 1974, and like the way the like Christmas lights glow, like it's got this really warm, wholesome, like family feeling to it. But just these terrible things are happening. And I think like
it's got a very like Vaseline lens situation almost throughout the movie.
It feels like his other like absolute all-time classic Christmas movie, A Christmas Story. Like they look very similar in that way. It's, I don't know. I love that it feels like a Christmas movie, even though it doesn't have a whole lot to do with Christmas.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And like that, there's a lot of Christmas movies that like, especially like we're in the age of like Die Hard's a Christmas movie. This is a Christmas movie, Sneaky Christmas, all those things where everybody's sort of like either like trying to elevate the latest Christmas, like explicitly Christmas film as like a Christmas classic, or they're trying to elevate an existing classic as a Christmas movie. And you know, with enough pressing it becomes a Christmas movie, whether or not it is or was intended to be. This movie is absolutely intended to be a Christmas movie. You can tell from like, and the remake is kind of in the same vein where it's like you like every banister is strung with garland and lights, every fucking shot you get, every plot point, at least in this one, seems to center around primarily either like there's a lot of plot points that center around it being Christmas, it being snowy, it being all of those seasonal things that you can expect. And that's more than you get from most Christmas horror, where the most you get is just like around Santa lore or like around lore that exists for Christmas, not around Christmas seasonal stuff necessarily. That's stuff we recognize as being Christmas centric.
Well, that's why it works for me in a lot of ways too, because it really just plays with the, like, it's a part of the setting, and that it doesn't necessarily drive the plot of, you know, like you said, this guy's dressed up like a Santa or you know, he's pretending to be Santa or whatever. It's just like some people are gone for the holidays. You know, we're wrapping up the semester. This guy's taking his final test. You know, the girls are giving some Christmas presents away. They're hanging out. They're drinking a little bit. You know, one of the guys is ice skate, or he's playing hockey or whatever. So it's just, it feels more natural. You know, you're just able to live in this spot that feels very authentic from everybody that you see. Nobody's doing anything that seems out of place or crazy for real life. And that's what I was saying, even though this feels like the 70s, other than their outfits that they're wearing, like nothing like sticks out as like, it feels timeless in a way, which really makes it like very enjoyable for me to watch now. It is fun to see the outfits, as ridiculous as some of them are. But like, as far as just day-to-day life, hey, I'm meeting my daughter here. The semester's wrapping up. I'm taking a test. We're having a Christmas party. Here's a gift for our landlady or whatever. It's like that all feels so natural and timeless. It's things that we do now.
Absolutely. And the reason is that like you have these like situations where everything that happens in this movie is an outcropping of the Christmas season or the end of the holiday or whatever, or I'm sorry, the beginning of the holiday season and the end of classes and all those things. They're all a byproduct of the Christmas season without depending on Christmas lore of any kind. Mm-hmm. And that is a key difference that you don't actually get a lot of in any other Christmas horror movies. A lot of them, most of them, all of them maybe for the most part, seem to center around some sort of Christmas lore so that they can justify calling it a Christmas movie. This movie does not have to do that and still feels more like Christmas than almost any other Christmas horror movie because it doesn't go there. It doesn't have to go to the lore section to really make you feel like you're in a Christmas season, because for the most part, those things are elevated, like whimsical storytelling themselves. You have to work to subvert that rather than trying to like introduce and subvert something. They just say, hey, it's the holiday season. A lot of shit's going on. You're going to have a lot of Christmas visuals because that's what happens at Christmas. People put up shit on their banisters. People, roads closed because of weather conditions. Shit like that happens. And then some people are depressed. Some people, all those things, they are not things that are dependent on lore. They are just things that happen around that time of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
That. I love the interplay with the girls and the house mother in this movie. They do a pretty good job with like
Mrs. Mac kicks ass. I literally have a note that says Mrs. Mac kicks ass.
Mrs. Mac, I would hang out with Mrs. Mac every fucking day.
I'd hang out with her, but she's a full-blown drunk, which is problematic.
She's out of her fucking mind, and that's what's great about her.
I like that all these characters feel like fleshed out and not just like archetypes, and they're also not just like idiots. And there's the movie's not just like drenched with like unnecessary nudity. Like a lot of these sort of stereotypes that happen in latter-day slasher movies, this movie is like totally without any of them in a way that like makes it stand the test of time and like adds to its feeling of timelessness. And it's sort of like, even though these like horrific things are being said on the phone, it almost feels like this like classic movie. And I think not just horror fans would agree with that. I would hope so anyways. I mean, I know I got a bias here, but I would think that like some normies would watch this and be like, damn, that's just a good fucking movie. Like no matter what you're into.
It's very compelling. Like every character has compelling reasons for the way they're behaving, and none of them seem like they are going out of their way to make the plot happen. That is very, very fucking admirable in any horror or any other movie. Otherwise, that is just good writing, period.
The problem is I don't know how accessible it is outside the horror genre, which is a positive for the movie as a horror film because it's disturbing. And one thing, the iconic idea, I made a note that said the first girl that is killed and left up in the attic is Claire. This kind of iconic figure. Yeah, Claire. Yeah. She's got the bag over her head. Her dad's looking for her the whole time.
Ah, damn, dude.
I put that. I feel like these days that would be the one before the rules were kind of established of the Laurie Strodes and like all that kind of idea. I feel like that would be the type of character that would be pushed from a narrative standpoint to be the final survivor. Instead, we have these other girls who one is this raging drunk who's clearly horny all the time. She's making these fellatio Margot jokes Kidder. And stuff like that. And then you have our main girl, which is like wild, and some that we should talk about, but the whole plot line is of her having an abortion.
And they do not shy away from being explicit about what they're talking about.
No, which, and rejecting,
is kind of like a byproduct of the development of how that conversation has gone in America. Like that we feel that it should be taboo now, even though it shouldn't be ever, really. But
and rejecting her boyfriends, like that whole thing of like, no, I'll marry you, and like, oh, I'm gonna leave this thing, and like that's the plot line, and that's the girl who survives. That's bold and something that, you know, it might be like try hard to do it today. Like they might push it in a way to like that is the focus, but that's what's so good about this movie. It's that's not the focus. It's literally just a regular thing that people are doing.
It's a regular thing that becomes a red herring for the way the movie ends.
Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of like good.
Yeah, it's very smart, and they do not make a stand on it really. Besides portraying Peter as a petulant child, which he definitely is.
Yeah,
but that is to the effect of having a like significantly believable red herring that leaves our character in the lurch in the end, essentially. And like that's fucking great because that is entirely story driven. It's not ideologically driven at all, but it works really fucking well.
It back in the day, I don't know, I wasn't alive, but it may have seemed a little bit try hard. Roe v. Wade was passed in 73. This came out in 74, so it was extremely topical at the time, I'm sure, and like certainly progressive to be that blunt about it in a movie that came out in 1974. I would assume. But I think it does a lot to like add to the strength of these female characters and like their individuality, and like Peter like bending the knee and just like literally telling Jess that she cannot have an abortion because she
without
did not
his permission.
ask him. Yeah, like fuck that piece of shit. It's just it's insane to hear that kind of talk. But then you think about like present day when Roe v. Wade has been
it's not
overturned.
Surprising. Like it's like it's not so surprising. Like the way that he's acting isn't.
He's acting,
doesn't feel out of place.
It's like the Supreme.
It's very
Court.
in place. It's just like it doesn't. It lacks the context we have decades later.
Sure,
is what the reality is. And the thing is, like, I don't know that your entire like I none of us were there, so I don't think that we have any authority to say so. But it's my understanding that abortion as a political hot button issue really took off in like the 80s. After like before that, like it was not quite as contentious, and it certainly wasn't divided quite so cleanly along party lines. Like I don't know, that's my understanding anyway. I take it for what it's worth. I think that like whatever like this movie does, like I don't think this movie is trying to be topical it
doesn't feel that way.
It doesn't feel like it is. Yeah,
right. And which is not necessarily a ding on it or a plus, but it works really well for this movie because it creates the perfect storm that allows our heroine to be left basically in the clutches of the villain at the end of the movie without any true resolution as to whether or not she escapes or gets killed, whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know. Just since we're doing on this, I don't want to like linger on it too long. My main thing was just bringing up the idea of like, oh, I feel like Claire these days would have been pushed to kind of be the surviving person at the end. But also, too, I don't know if this is a choice, but if it is, it's kind of smart. And it kind of works in my head canon anyways, of making Jess British and treating the kind of abortion thing in this more kind of nonchalant way where she's like more like maybe less burdened by the cultural obligations that maybe other people felt or would feel, where Jess is like, you know, he actually proposes to her and she doesn't even kind of consider it. And she even treats it in a very like a mature kind of way where she's like, Peter, I don't want to marry you. Yeah, like, Peter, you know, aside
she
from
treats it as
a kid and everything else, like, I don't want to marry you. You know, we're in college and I want to do this shit.
And that's,
that's
what's so interesting. Like the Peter character, as much as he is fun to look at and be like, look at this piece of shit. Like, it's so fun to do that. But also like the way he's written, it's very like understandable to some extent his mindset. Like he he doesn't seem that different from any dude you might pass on the street who like today who feels entitled to tell like his girlfriend, like, you know what, things didn't work out for me at the conservatory, so you know what, I'm getting married instead, and you're gonna be the wife, and you're gonna stay home barefoot and pregnant.
You're my plan B. Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. Like he doesn't have anything else going, and all of her plans go out the wayside, and she's like, you can't expect me to put all of my entire life on hold to just support you in what you think is or in your failures, basically. That was never in my plan. I don't know. I love that about this movie is she is self-possessed without being like without it being such a major. It's not a boss bitch moment. You know what I mean? It doesn't have the
it's not like snappy
to it.
It's not winking at you when it happens.
Yeah.
Right. Which, you know,
it just feels like a regular person.
Every movie that happens in now could very well be not trying to do that, but just because it's made now and because we assume the creator knows a certain amount of things about hot button issues, that is what's happening, that they're trying that they're like giving us a good solid, like, here's the thing you should think about this. And this movie doesn't do that. It doesn't give you the luxury of that. It only tells you what you need to know to understand that at the ending, Peter is a red herring that is taken as the killer. Period.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe if he wasn't such a piece of shit, she wouldn't have killed him. Maybe.
Well,
maybe?
No. It works so effective.
Maybe
it works so effective because it affects the audience's mind. When you're down in the basement with your survivor, that's the whole kind of point of horror, is to have you have this kind of cathartic experience in a lot of ways where you're down there. What if I was down there? What if I was a survivor? And here comes old Peter. Okay.
Old Peter breaking into the basement.
Well, then you have the choice. You know, I have been chased down here. You followed with her. You're feeling the suspense of what would you do? You know, would you let your guard down and be like, yeah, Peter, what's up? Let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, Peter,
or
would
you keep your guard up and swing at that motherfucker as soon as any little bit of thing seems out of place? And even the choice not to kind of show how it all goes down is pretty smart.
I like
that, because you don't really know, like, was there some kind of struggle? Did she like get too close in just 1 second? And she was like, fuck this. Like, I'm not taking my chance.
Maybe she aggressed him. We don't know.
Maybe she did. Maybe she was like, this is my chance.
Just out of terror. Yeah. Like what? Like we've seen that in other movies where like a hero like will think that the person coming around the corner is the killer or the person wanting to hurt them, and then they accidentally kill somebody that they absolutely did not want to kill.
Yeah.
And it becomes a plot point in that way. We don't even get the luxury of knowing that that's what happened. This movie is all about the facts, you know, like it's really refreshing on some level.
The sound design, I wanted to like give a quick nod real quick of like the phone calls for sure, but also when Billy is chasing Jess down the stairs into the basement, he is screaming wildly. It is truly terrifying to hear that shit. Like, she has to be scared out of her mind down there in the basement. Like, I'm sure whenever Peter breaks the damn window, she's like hanging on by a thread, you know, so he got whatever he had coming to him. But like, the sound design is so fucking scary. Those phone calls with like the multiple voices layered on top of each other and shit is just insanely well done. Bob Clark actually does one of the voice. I think he's the one that's screaming real high pitched is the one that he does. And there was another guy
just like that.
There was another guy that did like a handstand to like help compress his thorax to like augment how his voice sounded to do some of the voices on that shit. It's just really well thought out and really well done. That shit's horrifying still to this day.
Well, to go off that, another like really smart choice is I want to pick up on the things that really kind of feel a little under the surface because I feel like they're chosen so well is The sound effect is great and the voice is disturbing. And I wrote the note, these phone calls are really troubling and stuff like that. But they're also maybe not, I don't want to say out of the norm because it's definitely not normal. But back in the day when people would harass people on phone call, there's no caller ID, nothing like that. Then this might be, the cops are kind of like, it's maybe an old boyfriend, and not to blow that off or anything. But one thing that's the smart choice that really kind of makes us special and hammer it home is that one moment, he's only got one, where he stops and it sounds like a very normal, composed person that just says, I'm going to kill you. Because it's so smart, because the typical narrative trope is kind of like the Jekyll and Hyde. Is that the killer's out of his mind as something has making a rational person not rational, or they're just mentally not there to begin with, which a lot of this movie kind of indicates the way he talks to himself and places the doll in this girl's lap and stuff like that. But that one single moment and that choice to be the rational mind, or what sounds like the rational mind, is the moment where it's the literal threat of, I am going to kill you, in plain, bold speech, in the right mind, is like, that's so effective and such a good
I think you've honestly pinpointed one of the things that made that expansion in 2006 so much less impactful, because it was the sort of like, I don't know, you're totally right that it's a tropey thing that you will see more often than not in a movie like this, where if you're trying to figure out who the killer is, whatever, like Scream style, you're going to find out that it's some wackadoo, out of control, Lillard-esque alternate reality character version of your boyfriend, who's totally normal otherwise, who's just putting on a guise, or who is otherwise like has split, like quote unquote split personalities or whatever. And it's very like, even in this time, like split the DID and all that stuff, it was not understood, and it was well used in the horror genre and any other like in film to make like, oh, mentally unwell people can sort of like segment their minds this way. We're going to use that in every fucking horror movie. And so like the idea that they did not go that route, that they just sort of made this person like just terrorizing them, period. Mm-hmm. And he's like, he's not well, like obviously he's out of his fucking mind. But him being out of his mind is the state he's in no matter what. It's not an issue where it's like, it can be segmented. You can be like, you don't have, it's not going to turn out to be like, her, like somebody's like boyfriend you don't suspect because he's like the guy who plays Santa Claus. It's not going to turn out to be that guy. You know what I mean? Because he's just like, oh, I hate doing this, blah, blah, blah. And he's like acting like a plotting idiot. And then he's going to turn out to be like, mastermind. I planned this whole thing. Like mad scientist level. No, none of that shit. This is just a creepy motherfucker who is calling them and trying to scare them and then killing them. It just works really well. So yeah, I'm basically, long story short, I agree.
Well, and that kind of built off of the kind of deeper horror of this too, which is a more kind of realistic horror of, a lot of times when you're playing a horror movie for entertainment and you're doing that kind of Scream thing, I even said when Scream 5 came out, I'm trying to guess who's that? It's part of this thing. But the honest truth is, this guy just sneaks into this house and there's no resolution at the end. And then there's another movie, this that came out that I'm going to talk about and what you've been watching. That's just about this, this killer or this death that has happened where there's no resolution for a long time, where people go forever not knowing, who's been killed and who did it. Are they dead or whatever? And that's definitely more kind of realistic, not, your best friend's girlfriend is spiteful and now she's plotting this thing. No, it's like this dude's fucking crazy. But there's still some semblance of a human being there. It's not just like this inhumane monster that they're creating, I don't know. It's so,
he's not so tropey to seem like a creation of Hollywood. Yeah. He's crazy but still seems like a normal, like a human level of crazy, not a superhuman Hollywood level of crazy.
Yeah. See, this doesn't, well, I think all the pieces that we're pulling together here kind of get me to this conclusion where it doesn't feel necessarily like entertainment. It feels like a true kind of story, this glimpse of story where like these pieces aren't necessarily like, they do entertain, but it's not like, let's push this political agenda. Let's give the audience this experience. It's just well crafted. You don't see the strings. It's
that's so true. I totally agree. I think let's get into the nitty gritty because there's quite a bit of that, right? Like talking about individual characters.
Bob wants to land
vaguely referenced Miss Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that where you were going, Rob?
We got a few minutes. Yeah, let's talk about Miss Mac.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were trying to move us on.
You're good.
Okay.
He just had that look in his eye, like I gotta.
Like you better shut the fuck up.
A few minutes.
Okay.
No,
Mrs.
Mac is like the fucking like. There's like you were saying earlier, like all these characters seem really fleshed out. Mrs. Mac is my fucking favorite. She is just dealing with these like sourpuss motherfucking assholes who live in the sorority house, and just like dealing with their problems constantly. Is not happy with like her romantic situation or anything like that. So she hides alcohol in the most like absurd places throughout the house.
B is for booze. That makes perfect sense to me. Okay.
The funniest fucking thing that happens in this movie, and it's not a very funny movie, but like the funniest thing that happens in this movie is when she's like dealing with whatever the girl who got choked out or whatever, the first girl who dies, her dad showing up, and he's he's no smiles, he's all serious, and she's just sort of like semi-drunk kind of dealing with him, and she's like, oh, would you give me a ride to town? He's like, yes, okay. And then she goes and she's chasing the cat or whatever, and something happens, and she's like, you little piece of shit, you little bastard or whatever, and then just turns to her left, and there's the guy looking at her like, what the fuck's your problem? And she says, it's very kind of you, sir. I don't know. That fucking scene makes me laugh every fucking time. It's like just like saying the same line. It's so obvious, like that she's just sort of like pulling her own string and saying whatever she's supposed to say. It's great.
Her toilet booze cracks me up pretty hard every time. She brushes her teeth and swishes the liquor
and then spits it.
Every time I watch that, I have this like visceral reaction of like, oh, that looks terrible. But it's a good point to bring up Miss Mac too, because she's the main element of another interesting aspect of this film, which is the comedy. You know, it's not a particularly funny film, but her character feels like a realistic-esque character. Like it feels like they smartly chose the right person to deliver the most amount of comedy and the most kind of believable way. Even the situations of with the dad showing up, which it's so good to be able to create these moments where, okay, there's this dad showing up, because it makes these comedic moments work so well. Like when she's got to put her hand over the photograph of the people having sex in the position of the peace sign or whatever.
Yeah, the poster.
While also flashing to scenes of the daughter that this man is looking for dead in the attic, rocking back and forth with that look on her face of suffocation and it still being there. Man, that's a very difficult line to toe, and I feel like they do it perfectly.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with him.
It's horrifying.
I totally agree.
His daughter is just above him, and he has no idea. I mean, nobody ever
through
has...
the whole movie, nobody checks the fucking
Miss Mac
in this movie that survives.
Yeah, she dies. Something that did bother me about the end of this movie is the absolutely abysmal police work that happens. So, like, they find Jess.
Nash.
They find Jess in the basement, and she's like barely conscious with a corpse on her. And like they just tuck her in bed, and they don't search the house. Clearly, nobody goes in the basement. They don't lock it down as a crime scene and like collect blood or fingerprints or do literally anything. They don't take her to the hospital, for crying out loud. They just leave her alone.
I'm gonna defend this a little bit. Well, in the way that it's presented, not the police work itself, but in the way that it's presented in this way, it feels consistent, at least. I like, this is a great juxtaposition and line that they toe with the police themselves and how they include them throughout this film, where you do have this one cop who's very incompetent and they play with, and you get a little comedy out of that with the fellatio and stuff like that. But then you have this other cop and then a couple other cops who actually feel like, they're taking it seriously and they wouldn't, it feels like they shouldn't allow this to happen at the end. How could you catch this thing? But they leave the hints in there, which actually makes it justified for these characters. So we already know Nash is pretty incompetent, but we also know that this is kind of like a small town type of situation, because at the end, we've had the little girl who's 13 die where they have a body, but then really we only have a handful more bodies, 3. They haven't found Mrs. Mack and they haven't found Claire. So we have like 2 of the other girls and
Margot Kidder and Peter and one other girl. Yeah.
So like 4 bodies maybe. And the coroner can't handle 4 bodies. The police can't handle 4, and they mentioned that all at the end. And then the bias of the detective, who's kind of got this arrogance about it. He does take it more seriously, but he also has this known arrogance of, I just knew it was that kid. I was following my gut. I was following my hunch, and he's dead. Wrap it up. That's exactly what it is, or whatever. And so that gives you this kind of excuse to be like, well, that's consistent with these people that we see.
I totally agree with that.
Set it up so well, then that would be a huge thing of oh my God, how would they not even check the attic?
It's supposed to, though.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think you're supposed to be like, oh my God. Obviously you're supposed to end the movie like, oh my God, they left this girl here.
Yeah.
I think that what's happening is kind of adjacent to what you're saying. I think I agree that it's comes from a police arrogance that they don't rummage through the rest of the house, even just for bodies. Just that, that guy's daughter is still missing at the end of this movie. And he sits down next to Karen or whatever, her bed, and passes out. That's what the thing that draws them out of there. That's the part that I feel like is perfectly realistic in a way that makes it, to your point, somewhat justified feeling, where each individual person is just oh man, he's passed out, let's help him go downstairs. And then the police chief is oh, Nash, make sure everything's wrapped up in here, make sure everything's good, I gotta go take care of something else. And then Nash, who is the idiot, is left to be the person to turn off the light and leave the building. And that's what's it makes perfect sense. It's just a failure. Period. And it's a failure that you can understand that could happen in real life, and probably certainly has. So it again is sort of this thing where you're oh no, I can't believe this is happening, but it's not entirely it's not implausible at all. It's the fact that it is plausible is what makes it so frustrating, I think.
Probably, yeah. I mean, if they have people missing, they would at least search the house for more bodies, since they found 2 in the house already. But shitty police work happens, so it's believable, sure.
Every true crime is essentially about shitty police work. Every true crime podcast is at least 50% about that.
You would never think, oh my God, an underage boy would come stumbling out incapacitated and then been handed back to his killer, and that's what happened.
Did happen, indeed. Yeah. It is about time to land the plane, though. So if you guys have anything else, of course, just add it to your closing remarks here. Juice, why don't you kick us off? How do you feel about Black Christmas?
I'm gonna go through just my notes, really. Opening POV shot, awesome. I love the aspect of talking about the sound design of the mouth breathing and the stuffed up nose. It really got under my skin, but it also gives it this kind of realistic feel of it's fucking cold out and his nose is all stuffed up. That afro, laugh out loud. The Mona. Very funny and disturbing, the way they toe this line of, even with the voices, of how ridiculous it is and how some girls take it seriously and some don't. I like that aspect. As I said before, the line, I'm going to kill you, very brilliant and very smart decision. Claire being the girl that would survive, Jess smoking. Jess is freaking, 10 for me.
Ooh, shit.
I love Jess.
Are you the butthole?
And the British accent, like really, man. Ooh, Jess.
She doesn't want to marry you.
Well, that's fine. Dead body in the rock. She also don't want to have kids. 10. Dead body in the rocking chair. Like that iconic. You know, it's on Bob's Blu-ray or whatever. That's so iconic and disturbing. And again, the aspect with the dad just right underneath her, fantastic. Instead, in place of a killer, you know, in place of a killer, they have his kill, his first kill and his like most iconic kill. That's really interesting. I did say this one thing about Jess. Now, Peter Cooter, fuck him 100%, but she probably should have waited to tell him until after his fucking test. Like, it's like 12 hours. Yeah. Like, wait 12 hours. I know that this is a big pressing thing. I do. I understand it. But like,
I think she was about to leave, but
well, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe it's a phone call, but maybe it's not. I don't know.
Just like she even says, like, I thought about not telling you. It's like, wait 12 hours. Yeah. Mrs. Matt kicks so much ass. The girl who's missing is 13. That adds this extra element of disturbingness. And one, I wrote a note when the mom was screaming like Janice. Oh man, that really was impactful. That was making her 13 in that moment was intense. We didn't really talk about Barb, but I just wrote a note that says Barb sucks. I wrote, I don't know. Like, I get that dude's like got it in his mind about this situation, but like, I don't know if he would fuck up the piano that badly.
It's destroyed.
Yeah. And then, I don't think that's okay to fuck that piano up.
It's not
that
his.
Well, not your piano.
I don't think it's intended to be okay.
Yeah. I did write that fur jacket that Chris is bumping. Fire. I love it. I love that jacket. I need that jacket. I guess that's about it. I did write a note during the phone call with the cop. When Jess is on with the cop, there was like the shadow creeping in the background that I don't think I ever really noticed. I don't know if y'all noticed that or not, but it's pretty cool. This movie is fantastic. I didn't watch it. I have no nostalgia value for it. And I even went in with like a kind of high expectation. The first time I watched it, blew me away. I love watching it. It's crafted so well. It's so fun to see this before all of the kind of things that we know now for 50 years worth of tropes and the Halloweens and all the slashers. This movie did it so well, like from the start. And sure, there's influences, you know, like he's in the house and stuff like that. We've seen that before, but this movie does it so well. I love how they handle their killer, these people, the season. Fantastic movie. 5 out of 5. Love it. I absolutely love it. It's like a horror classic through and through. Absolutely a Christmas classic. 5 out of 5. Bob, out of 5, where are you going to rate Black Christmas?
Oh, hey. Yeah. Like we kind of said at the beginning, like this movie didn't necessarily invent the slasher, but I think it definitely set the gold standard for what a slasher movie ought to be. With that amazing opening scene, the POV shot as he's climbing up the side of the house, stalking these girls from the attic. It's very like slow and methodical pace. It's got a very like heavy, like dense atmosphere going on. It's got pretty decent kills. None of them are like too crazy gory, but they still, you feel them when they happen still. It's got the idea of a final girl as well, but she's not like this perfect like Christian being necessarily, but there just is like an idea of a final girl. Generally, like the cinematography of this and the look and feel of this movie is just incredible. I love like watching this movie is such a joy because it feels like every frame is just so like perfectly lit and like staged. It's got that like intense like Christmas feel that puts you in the mood of the holiday, even though it's like genuinely a scary ass movie. The score hits. It's got like this really creepy piano thing happening. And one of the bits of trivia I read was the composer, he was tying like silverware to the strings, so when he pressed the keys, it would like augment the sounds and make them unnatural.
Whoa, that's weird.
I think that comes through really well. All the characters are like well thought out. They all have like, they're like actual people. They're not just like sketches that are there to be red shirts or for just unnecessary nudity. They're all just real people, and you feel that. It doesn't feel forced. You're just like watching these girls have a Christmas party, you know? I think it's a pretty like feminist movie, definitely of its day, and certainly now with the like very upfront discussion of abortion and like the freedom to choose to do that with your own body if that's what you want to do. Miss Mac is hilarious. She's like the perfect amount of like comedic relief throughout the movie, which I think you desperately need, because outside of her, this movie is fucking heavy and dark. I think you definitely need her in this movie.
It's her and Nash, baby, against the world.
She's fucking hilarious. When she pulls that toilet booze out, dude, I fucking lose it every time. The extremely ambiguous killer is scary as shit. His voices, the way he screams, is fucking terrifying. That one eyeball that you see in the crack of the door is horrifying. It's enough. You don't need it anymore. His figure
with the hook, man.
Yeah, like holding the hook. Yeah, it's fucking terrifying.
It's good.
Yeah, it is.
It's an annual watch for me. It's mandatory viewing if you're a horror fan. It's a 5 out of 5. No complaints. Randy, how do you feel?
Not too dissimilar. I think that I don't know. I think that this movie sort of elevates itself through it's just sort of like laying out of the facts without being overly verbally expository. It tells you who these characters are. You get a good sense of them. You don't have to have too many people saying like, oh, you're such a good girl. When are you ever going to break loose? Or any of that kind of shit that like you would get in a lot of movies. I kind of feel like, and I say this as somebody who is a self-professed, not a Giallo fan. I feel like this is sort of the missing link between Giallo and slasher in America. Is like, it really feels that way to me because there's a quietness to this movie that you don't really get in a lot of slashers, at least not once their heyday hit. Even Halloween was a louder feeling movie than this one to me. I feel like there's just so much quiet downtime, like the warmth of the hearth or whatever becomes menacing through silence rather than through, I don't know, bluntly placed dialogue or whatever. I just feel like there's some very subtle ways that this movie elevates itself. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of negatives for it, which makes it very difficult to like be critical towards it at all. I think if anything, maybe it feels like they spend too much time letting Barb do Barb stuff to the point where it feels like it's not so much funny as it is like it starts to become like depressing again. And like sort of like, I don't know. I think there's maybe a little bit of editing that could go into it, but that's speculative. I really don't need that to happen. Like I don't really, I might be just trying to tailor it to my own taste. So like I gave this a 4 out of 5 the first time we watched it. And I think that my opinion of it has grown alongside its reputation and alongside my multiple viewings of it. I'm also going to give it a 5. And I think that like, I don't know that it's, to me, it's not, if I watch this every year, it would lose its impact quite a bit for me. So I don't know if it's that for me, but it is definitely one that I will revisit at least every couple of years, every 3 years, something like that, because it's just so fucking important to horror and at the same time, goddamn effective at what it's doing. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have a whole lot else to add besides what you guys have said and that.
Yeah, when we first reviewed this, I think it was the first time watch for all of us. The first time we talked about it on the show 8 years ago, I also gave it a 4 out of 5. Jack was on the show, he gave it a 2.5, and Ross was on the show, he gave it a 3, and that was it. So we've definitely, our opinions have certainly evolved over the course of the past 8 years on this movie. For those of you keeping score at home, our aggregate is obviously a 5 out of 5. Let's jump over into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about Black Christmas.
Certified. Dead.
All right, everybody. This is the Rotten Tomatoes segment in which I'm going to have these gentlemen guess within the best of their abilities what the critics and users' aggregate positive score is on RottenTomatoes.com. So for Black Christmas, there are 35. Is that right? 35 critic reviews. Yes. I'm going to start with Bob tonight. Bob, what is the aggregate positive score for those 35 critics, you think?
I think it's going to be pretty high. I don't know how high. I'm going to go with an 85, please.
85. All right. Juice, what about you? Where do you think they fall?
It's crazy. I was just thinking this. I was like, no matter how many years we've done this, I never think about this until this segment starts. I'm like, oh yeah, we always play these games.
That's for the best.
Yeah, it is. Like I never think about when I'm writing my notes or anything. Never even cross my mind.
This is not the important part of the review, so I'm glad you feel that way.
So Bob said 85.
85 for Bob.
I think it's going to be slightly lower than that. I just don't know. I just think it's going to be slightly lower. I don't know why. I'm feeling 78.
78. All right. Well, not a ringy dingy for either of you, but relatively close for one of you. And that one is Justin. Congratulations. It's 71%.
Oh,
about 7 off.
Gotta get it.
Guys, I swear I never think of this. I certainly don't ever look up the scores before we do the game. I promise.
Okay.
I promise. Never crosses my mind.
Okay, Bob. Mr. Crusty Loser over there. Okay.
Crusty Loser.
Crusty Busty. Oh.
Uh-huh.
I'm a crusty loser. Let's move over to the audience score. There's 10,000 plus ratings, so a huge sample size for this. Juice, we're going to start. I'm sorry. Yeah, Juice, we're going to start with you on this one. Where do you think those 10,000 people landed?
I think it's honestly going to be similar. 71. I'll go maybe slightly higher for the fans. I'm going to say 75.
75. All right. Bob, how about you?
I'm going to go higher with a 78, please.
Higher and higher. All right. 78. Well, we do, in fact, have a ringy dingy on this one. And Bob, I'm so sorry to tell you, it's Juice this time.
Oh my God. Guys, I never think about this segment. I promise it has never crossed my mind in 8 years. Never even ever thought about it.
Who told you can eat my cookies?
Those are
got
my
a little
cookies.
chapped ass over there, huh, Mr. Crusty Loser?
So
got a crusty
It's not chapped unless we get
butthole
new
over there,
patrons. All right.
True.
Critics' consensus reads as follows. The rare slasher with enough intelligence to wind up the tension between bloody outbursts, Black Christmas offers fiendishly enjoyable holiday viewing for genre fans. I think that's putting it lightly, honestly. And, I think those scores are, shockingly low to me.
Well, when I was thinking about it, we're seeing a kind of resurgence now. But even when you guys first watched it, just 8 years ago, even Bob, who was a big horror fan, I think rated it a 4, which would be an 80%. So, I don't see it as that far off.
I think that to me, the reason I can tell you the reason that I gave it a 4, at least looking back, I couldn't tell you because I haven't listened to it. But what I imagine was the case was feeling like it was a slow movie, which is not a thing that I particularly am bothered by most of the time.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it as seminal slasher movie. This is supposed to be a slasher movie. In having that modern view of what a slasher is and then watching this for the first time, I felt like it was too slow.
Yeah.
But that's not really the case because this movie it's establishing those sort of rules. And I don't think that I don't even think that breaking those rules would be a bad thing to me. Looking at it now, it's preferable than I as much as I like the Jason Lives of the world and things like that. Those are an entirely different breed. Those are movies I watch to laugh at, not to feel troubled by. And that's what Black Christmas accomplishes for me.
Also, this movie, the biggest thing is it's subtle, which doesn't necessarily blow fucking box offices. They're, it's even for a horror film, its spectacle is like pretty minimal, you know, even the deaths that we get and stuff like that. So it's subtle and it feels refreshing today. We're like, oh my God, you know, we've had the Sauls and the human centipedes and like all the kind of things that we get. So looking back now, it's very refreshing to me, but I could also see it's like people not digging on that subtlety or not getting it. I just don't think they get it.
I can understand general audiences getting it less to some extent.
But critics get it.
Well, it's not even that. Like,
don't get it.
Crusty losers don't understand.
If you are elevated like Soju, you'd get it. But
no, it's not even like I just don't think that people necessarily have the same patience that we do after years of watching these kinds of things. And I think that I'm more shocked by the critics giving it the score that it did, except that a lot of the critics they're pulling from, I'm sure, are from a time period long before, you know, horror started being allowed into the conversation as something to be taken seriously. Yeah. So there's also that to be added to it. So it makes sense in some level. But it seems weird to me based on modern sensibilities, I guess.
I just want some negative reviews. Let's get elevated, guys.
Roll up. Get elevated. I got some.
I'll get elevated with you, dog.
Oh, I'll elevate it. Oh yeah. All right. Here, let's read some negative reviews and see what these idiots have to say. If nothing else, Black Christmas will always be remembered as the inferior older brother to Clark's other Christmas flick, the Tito of the Jackson clan.
Oh my God.
What?
They're trying to make a comparison to the Jackson 5, in which Tito is considered the laughingstock, I assume.
Oh my God. That's terrible.
What if we just started flying, dog?
What if we just got elevated, bro? You know what I'm saying?
Only Marion Waldman as the house mother comes across with any life. Well,
what?
That's not.
I don't think that's true, but I do approve of the praise for her.
Even with the very minimal kind of storylines and dialogue that we get, I felt like each girl was so distinct, but in a very natural way.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Housekeeping where it's like, this is the one who eats and this is the one who does kung fu.
They're not like characters on a character select screen.
Yeah, exactly.
They just kind of have their own deal.
Yeah, they're just distinct in their own right as people. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But
these people are fools, and that's the end of Rotten Tomatoes.
Tight. We have...
You're beneath me.
We have a decent pile of trivia, so let's go ahead and jump on into it.
It's totally time for trivia.
Time for trivia. Bob, hit me with that trivia, my guy.
Ooh, I got it. So NBC scheduled this film for its primetime network debut on January 28, 1978, under a different title, which was Stranger in the House. Then on January 15th, before the premiere date, 1978, 2 female students at Florida State University were murdered by an assailant who broke into the sorority house where they lived. The assailant then, much later, was identified as Ted Bundy. So NBC was freaking the fuck out. I believe they pulled it. I don't think they ever showed it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, terrible timing for this movie, and also just generally terrible that happened.
Although I will say, thinking about it, it would take a shockingly little amount of editing to get it down to a television friendly rating.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I think like this movie shows shockingly little for as effective as it is.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like the kind of subtlety, it's like it doesn't necessarily feed the gore hounds. It doesn't. Yeah.
No. Yeah. It's not a body count movie. It's not a gore movie for sure.
Yeah. And it's a mostly not. It's not. They go to the police station and they walk through the park, but mostly it takes place in the house. You don't even get a lot of different settings. You know,
that's so true. Very true.
This movie is often regarded as being one of the very first slasher films, alongside the likes of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974, A Bay of Blood, 1971, Psycho, 1960, and Peeping Tom, also 1960.
I've never seen A Bay of Blood.
Yes, you have. Talked about it on this show.
We reviewed it.
We did.
Don't be a Randy about it.
I think it was last year, actually.
All right, my bad. Oh, it's Italian, right?
It's Italian as shit.
Yeah.
Dude, all those Italian films, for some reason, their titles just wash away immediately.
Well, a lot of them have like 4
because you dislike Italians, of course. So, you put on record as saying you hate the Italians.
Yeah, I'll accept that.
We've heard that.
I stand by my ethnic slur.
Yeah.
I don't have that bump available, but there you go.
So elect me to Congress.
You just got to say it. Your boy Keir Dalia worked only for 1 week on this movie. He never met Margot Kidder, Lynn Griffin, or Art Hindle, or Miriam Waldman. Barely met John Saxon, but the movie is carefully edited in such a way that he appears to be present throughout the whole movie and interact with all these people.
Who is that?
That's the boyfriend, Peter.
Yes.
Oh. Okay, yeah.
That makes sense, though, actually. Like, thinking about it, he
mostly
deals
just
with her.
He does, because they have a conversation in the house alone.
He, like, runs past a few people on the way out the door, and
she goes to meet him while he's playing, like, at the piano room or whatever.
And he fucks up playing piano so bad.
It sounds terrible.
But it's fucking hilariously shitty.
It's like, dude, this is even
he's just dripping
memory.
Sweat. Yeah,
muscle memory is better than that.
At a certain point, you just be like, okay, I know I'm gonna fail. Let me start over and show you that I'm not completely out of my fucking mind.
Upon the initial release in the U.S., this movie's title was changed to Silent Night, Evil Night because the American distributors feared that the title Black Christmas might cause the film to be mistaken as a blaxploitation movie. However, it didn't do well under the new title, so it was changed back to Black Christmas.
Yeah. I tell you, I was talking to a new friend today who is a black dude, and he's like, "Oh, you do reviews? Oh, what are you reviewing?" I was like, "Oh, tonight it's Black Christmas," and he's like, "Well, that sounds racist." I guess it kind of does.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
Black Christmas was allegedly inspired by some real-life murders that occurred in Montreal, Quebec. This is a Canadian movie, by the way. I don't think we mentioned that. Canada, during the holiday season. This is most likely based on the Canadian serial killer by the name of Wayne Bowden, who killed 3 women in Montreal between October 69 and January 70. His fourth known victim was murdered in Calgary later on. He's apparently known as the vampire rapist. I'm not sure why or how accurate that name is.
I don't care for that name.
It's not great.
Change it.
Great name.
You said he was not caught?
I don't know. He had. I think he was caught. I don't know. I did not do more research than that. I'm not sure.
God, that just sparked my memory of one of those Netflix documentaries I was watching where this dude was kind of college girls, but then they were tracing it back. Oh, it was about the dude who they talked to the dogs.
Son of Sam?
Son of Sam. Remember, did y'all watch that documentary where they were tracing it to like cults and shit?
Yeah.
And then they went to like Wisconsin and something else like that. There was this documentary on Netflix. It was like, it's typical 3 or 4 episodes. Sons of Sam. Sons of Sam. Yeah.
I'm aware of it. I might have even watched it, but I can't remember.
There was this, director who had these crazy sex orgies in his house. And then they went to Wisconsin. There was this dude killing people at this college under the name of Satan. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I just sparked that in my mind.
Yeah. I don't know any more than that, but next piece of trivia. According to Bob Clark, Margot Kidder insisted on drinking real alcohol for the various scenes where Barb was to be drinking. So I guess when she's talking about the turtles fucking for like 3 days, she is legit hammered. So
cool.
Not
That's
really
fine.
acting. Yeah. It's not fine because she was a substance abuser and had a really rough life.
Yeah.
So it's not
okay.
great.
Well, okay.
She wasn't just method acting.
I like method acting as much as the next guy, but maybe don't use substance abuse.
Yeah, well, that kind of came off on screen though, because I did write the note like Barb kind of sucks, and she legit just seemed kind of like that friend who's
that was a struggle for her.
Who's way too many deep. Yeah.
Who's like legit deep and fucking shit up. Yeah.
The end of her life was apparently pretty rough, which is sad. But that's a whole nother thing.
Okay, that's not fine. I redact my statement.
You didn't know. The film setting of Bedford is an intentional homage to another Christmas film classic, It's a Wonderful
Bedford
Life.
Falls.
Which I have not seen that still.
What? Are you
Bob?
shitting
I've never
yourself?
seen it.
Bob,
I'm shitting myself.
Bob, you own so many movies you haven't seen, but you haven't seen the most important movie.
Oh my God. You don't have that on a steel trap?
I don't have it on the steel trap. I don't have it. on the steel trap.
Oh my
How are you going to doomsday prep your
Also, that's
Blu-ray
like the one movie
bunker.
that I feel like is on any kind of streaming service free all the time because it's like so fucking
It's
old.
1,000 years old. And it's also fucking great. So please watch it and let us know what you think
Lord.
about it.
Okay.
Also, it's kind of horror adjacent. Maybe I'll cover it next year because it's like he's dead.
It's existential horror to some extent.
Yeah.
Sure. Of course, it ends on a not so much of a horror note.
Maybe.
So there's a scene that we did talk about here in the movie where Margot Kidder tells the police officer her number is fellatio 20880. That baffled me.
Yeah, that's a joke that's hard to land these days.
Yeah,
it is. I truly don't really understand it, to be honest with you.
It's just the way that phones used to work.
Back in the day, phone numbers used to have letter codes and certain prefixes. And she just got lucky that dude didn't know what fellatio meant. And thought
I get that joke.
Right,
and I assumed it was something like a country code or something. So I can kind of piece it together. But I truly don't understand how that system works.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. Same here. I still don't, but it's just, fortunately they kind of like scooch up. I love the scene where they call him out and he's like, oh yeah, something dirty, isn't it? That's like that whole scene justifies Nash, the character, entirely.
Yeah, it does.
Your boy Bob Clark is from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He moved to Canada, lived there for 12 years, in which he made this movie, of course. This next piece we talked about when we covered Halloween, but Bob Clark at one point told a story about John Carpenter asking him if he ever made a sequel to this movie. And he said no. And the Carpenter asked if he wanted to do a sequel, what would it be? To which he replied, the killer would be caught. He would be imprisoned for about a year. He would then escape on Halloween and then kill people. So, like, a lot of people were like, oh, John Carpenter stole the idea. But Bob Clark, when asked about it after Halloween, he's like, no, that was 100% John's idea, defended him and whatnot. So,
it's a different thing.
It's a different
I mean, there's sameness, but like, I don't know, man. People are very, very protective over very little thoughts.
Yeah.
That, if I don't know, man. Creativity depends on building on things, period. Which is, I don't know, like it's why it feels so fucking like discomforting to have like people really, really rail and like it's the Disney thing where they like copyright things and they've pushed so that copyright laws are the way that they are. Copyright laws. Yeah, well, they hurt creativity to not be able to make dumbass horror movies about Winnie the Pooh. We should have been able to do that 50 years ago. Like there's no reason we shouldn't have been able to do that.
The budget of this movie was roughly $620,000. It grossed over $4 million, so that's pretty damn successful back in the day.
Good.
This allegedly was Elvis's favorite movie, and also
that's very unusual.
Yeah.
Also, Steve Martin loves the shit out of this as well. So kind of random fans of this movie there.
So Elvis, Steve Martin, and Soju. Add me to the list.
Hear Steve Martin talking about this movie. I'd be fascinated to hear what he thinks about this movie.
Yeah. Let's get him on.
I'll call
Steve.
him.
Reach out to us.
I know you're listening.
You contact us, motherfucker.
You have permission to come on to this cast.
We are busy.
We'll let you through the firewall just this once.
All right. That's all I got for trivia. Welcome to the easiest Cooter of the week we're ever going to have. Here we go.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the week.
Juice, what is a Cooter and why do we hunt them?
Oh, Cooter's character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a Cooter, but we want the Cooter with the most points. The 5 points of Cooterdom are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall look and attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, Raymond, who's our Cooter of the week?
Peter.
Really trying to sell it.
Peter. Did you see that turtleneck? Oh my God.
Dude,
the turtleneck and the bangs. The bangs are killing.
Yeah, over than the turtleneck. I'm not a turtleneck guy. I don't think I'd ever choose to wear a turtleneck. But the haircut,
be fucking. That's what I heard.
The fucking haircut.
He's just trying to fuck for days at a time. I get it.
Unacceptable.
Even it really is a child's haircut, and the turtleneck just really sells home how much he looks like the tip of a wiener.
I'm so surprised how
he looks like a dick tip.
He's compensating.
Turtlenecks still are.
The turtleneck and my cock hair, I'm compensating. Let's fuck for 9 days, okay?
That dude is uncut and not big. Let's be real.
So we can't give him look and attire.
He's all foreskin, says Randy.
He's really signaling to the world what he is, and it's not big, and it's definitely uncut.
Foreskin wieners kind of look weird.
It's all foreskin, baby.
Okay. Anyways, woo.
Looking at tire. Yes, check.
Arrogance for sure.
Oh my God, he really thinks he is entitled to have any say in her bodily autonomy, which I don't know, which I know is contentious to some people, but I don't think so.
Also, just the general course of her fucking entire life.
He feels so entitled to literally turn her into a housewife.
Yeah.
Completely neglecting anything she has any interest in. He's like, oh, you can still do that stuff. You'll just be married to me and make my dinners and do and he clearly just needs a direction in life, and he's using her pregnancy and her life as a crutch for his own failures, and it's pathetic. Point 3.
Also, the most egregious point of arrogance was fucking up that piano. I mean, come on, dude.
Yeah.
That's a nice fucking
piano. Yeah, you don't buck up a piano. Come on,
dude. Especially when you clearly are it's like, oh man, you clearly fucked up your exam so fucking bad.
Yeah.
And it's just the most petulant, childish reaction to that you can imagine.
I don't know how long people typically are supposed to stay at a conservatory, but I believe he says he spent 8 years there.
So that seems like a long time.
A little too
I don't know anything about it either, but that seems like a really long time.
Whatever the longevity is, nothing about what happened to him says anything other than he is a failure. So.
Yeah. And so looking at tire, patheticness, arrogance, check.
Yeah.
So we have manipulation and we have sexual deviance, which is interesting because that's a very strong point of the Cooterdom. And it's interesting in this kind of situation. Because their relationship is consensual.
Yeah.
And a lot of what, his problem comes from the arrogance, but it's of a kind of sexual nature. But I don't think I would call him necessarily a sexual deviant.
No, I agree. It's sexism, not sexual deviancy.
Yeah.
There's a key difference between those two things. One is sexual deviancy to me is driven by desire of an unusual flavor of sexuality that leads you to do terrible things. That's
out of a kind of arrogance, which is interesting how they play into each other.
They do. They definitely play into each other. But for him, it's very much about his sexist feelings towards women.
Yeah.
And basically him being a failure and trying to come up with a way to justify his own life in absence of what he's been working towards that he is completely fucked up, and then burn down the bridge towards by destroying the piano.
Yeah.
He's definitely kicked out of school. He's definitely fucked, and he's trying to find a new pathway in his life, and he's telling a woman that she is going to marry him because she is pregnant with his baby so that he can have a direction in life.
He's attempting manipulation there. It doesn't work, but I think we give
him sucks at it because he's more.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's fair. He would love to manipulate.
Yeah. He just can't do
he was smart enough, maybe.
4 out of 5.
But he's breaking into the basement. Regardless of what happens, the man's breaking into the basement at the end. Him being killed, he is definitely a dangerous man.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not he is the killer. He's not the killer, but he is a dangerous fucking guy.
Yeah.
So 4 out of 5 for Peter. Is there anybody else? Do we need to talk about the killer? I don't think we know enough about him.
We don't know them.
Yeah.
I think
I mean, we could get sexual deviance.
Based on the things that he says, I think sexual deviance.
But other than that, we have no idea what he looks like. Can't give a look in a tire. We don't really know. Like, I think it would be really hard
know what
to
his impulse is driven by.
Yeah, we really don't know anything about him.
Yeah. Maybe pathetic that he's just stalking these people. He kills a teenager. Like, I think general patheticness.
Yeah, but we have no idea like what's surrounding it.
Yeah.
I think you're right, but also, I would I feel like it's gonna take a lot to unseat Peter anyway. Honestly, in
Cooter court, you need like the hard evidence.
We only prosecute on rock solid evidence here in Cooter.
Yeah, I want this to be a respectable court. Okay,
respect us now, listeners. In the file now. We demand your respect.
Oh my
Peter, it is. Peter is the Cooter of the fucking year. I mean, let's be real. We got him.
Peter Blumpkinator.
We got him, and he's eating Blumpkins in prison. Oh boy.
Hello.
Let's kick our feet up, let our hair down, and talk about what we've been watching this week, boys.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randoose, what have you been watching?
Well, inspired by our conversation, I've been kind of on the same mission I'm sure you guys have been, which is sort of to squeeze in as many 2022 picks as we can this week. I haven't been able to, I probably haven't been as successful as you guys have been with it, just because I feel like I haven't had a ton of time, but
we're just lazy sons of bitches is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. I will say that aside from those, really quickly, I have been watching some Christmas specials with Becky. King of the Hill Christmas specials, Bob's Burgers Christmas specials, classics, all of them. I love them. I don't want to spend too much time on those. But as far as this, and The Watcher, which is like a Ryan Murphy. You guys are familiar with this Ryan Murphy show?
Netflix.
Not Watcher.
Okay.
It's a series.
I also had a confusion with. It's a series. It's not a great series, but it is an enjoyable series. I will give that. Naomi Watts is in it. It's good, not great, in my opinion, but that's a whole other conversation. As far as films go, like I've been trying to catch up on, this week I watched No Exit. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not, which is about a woman who is trying to go see her dying mother and gets pulled off the road by a cop and forced to go to what do you call it, a rest stop, like a greeting, like a what do you even call that thing? It's like a rest stop with like a welcome center sort of thing.
Like a tourist center.
Yes, exactly. While a snowstorm fades out, which to me, speaking like speaks to my personal experience from last year quite a bit and kind of left an impression on me. I liked it. Ultimately, I don't think that it's quite as good as I experienced it as good because of my experiences around being trapped in fucking snowed in cars.
No doubt.
And then also watched Sissy, which surprised me in a number of ways, and I quite enjoyed. Watched You Won't Be Alone, which I also quite enjoyed. I found quite interesting and unique.
Yeah. Finally.
I also watched Soft and Quiet, which disturbed me.
Yeah, no, I don't
pretty
care about
well. It disturbed me quite a bit, and because that's a horror that is very realistic.
Dude, that
is what's terrifying about it. It's very upsetting. I also snuck in Adult Swim Yule Log, which is heavily recommended to me. Like out of the blue, like 3 people were like, "You got to watch Yule Log, buddy." I was like, okay, well, I've seen Yule Logs where they kind of like do like these little sides or whatever, but this is a full-on horror film, by the way. So check it out, Adult Swim Yule Log. I bought it, but I'm not entirely sure that it's not on YouTube.
It's on HBO Max.
HBO, yeah.
Is it on HBO Max? Okay, well, I purchased a copy, and I'm happy that I did because it's pretty fucking interesting way of getting into a horror movie. Like it's a good in, you know what I mean? I don't think it's like the best horror movie of all time. And it's definitely like adjacent to horror comedy because it's the same like Too Many Cooks guys who do this incredible job of like making a really bizarrely stupid things seem terrifying. They do a great job with that here too. I think it's pretty worth your time. So yeah, those were the big ones. And then the last thing, I did play through the entirety of What Became of Edith Finch, which I mentioned last week, and it's extremely moving story. So, like, I'm very into the like because I just don't have a lot of time to dedicate to games. I really appreciate a short game, which is more about like the drive of the characters, the story, the immersion experience, than it is about like, you know, like being able to hit a certain benchmark of points accrual to get to the next whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? This is not a game that you can really fail at. You just take your time at different speeds. You just experience it however, at whatever speed you want. And I enjoyed that. So yeah, it's very good. And I know I'm late to the party on that one too. That's it though. I'll let you guys go.
All right, Juice, what you been watching?
Oh my Lord, so many things. I watched Del Toro's Pinocchio. I'm typically not a big Pinocchio guy. Del Toro, of course, did a fantastic job. I kind of wish he didn't make a musical because I feel like that's very heavily attributed to like the Disney aspect, and the songs in it weren't great. Everything else, though, for a Pinocchio story was on point. Animation looks great. He did some different things that you wouldn't expect that were good. Klaus, best Christmas movie to come out, definitely within like the past 5 years. I love that movie. Ever since it came out, I watch it every year. It's so fantastic. Love it. Watch Bones and All. Wasn't crazy about it, but I completely disagree with Bob's statement last week of it feeling like a disjointed movie. I felt like it was very consistent and saw like all the way through. I just didn't really like its flavor, particularly like its setting and time period were not something I'm typically into. But I thought the storyline was pretty consistent. So disagree with Bob on that one. Watch Krampus, you gotta do it. I watched Don't Worry, Darling. Yeah, finally. Don't Worry, Darling. It kind of honestly gave me a similar feel to Smile, where I feel like I've seen so many movies that have a similar kind of premise that it didn't really surprise me, or I wasn't surprised. But I was like, if this was the first time that you saw something like this, probably like blow your nuts off. And so for that, I think it's a pretty solid like entryway to those kinds of films. So actually I thought it was pretty solid. Christmas Vacation, I watched it again with my parents. I know I watched it kind of with Randy and Bob, but I was sleeping and snoring my ass off. So I watched it again with my parents. We laughed our asses off. I watched Nanny, which Bob had like recommended, hey, you know, try and get this in before because it won some awards. It just dropped like Thursday or Friday. So I was like running to get to that one. It was worth it. I thought it was really good. I was really impressed. I thought it had some really great elements. I would recommend Nanny, not the show, The Nanny. This is a new horror film. I watched The Apology, which is on Shudder, kind of a Christmas film. It bothered me in a lot of the same kinds of ways that Soft and Quiet did. In that it was like, I thought it was really well crafted, but just not fun to watch at all. Like very low enjoyability of like what's going on. You know, it's just like gut wrenching stuff going on. I also watched Yule Log. Found it. I love a clever premise. So I didn't like love it. I'm not in love with it, but I did love I love the idea that you could click it and not realize that it would be a horror film. That alone was enough to just sell me to watch it. So that's really funny. Watch Home Alone. You got to do it. And I have watched various Christmas carols to get ready for my discussion with Nicole. I watched the Disney one. I watched a Muppet Christmas Carol. I watched one of the old ones that's like black and white. There's so many of them.
Watch the Guy Ritchie one. That's a unique intro.
That's the one that's the series, right?
I think, is it Guy Ritchie? I don't know. I don't remember if that's right or not, but it's the one on FX that came out.
It's the one. It's a 6-part series, though, or maybe 8 episodes. I think.
It is a series. That's true. So
So I started to watch that. I don't know if I'll be able to get through before my discussion, but I did like the tone. However, I was thinking to myself, I don't know if this justifies like 6 to 8 episodes. I could see one episode per night. You agree?
Yeah, no, I think I've seen it all, and I think that it could have been tightened significantly. Okay. So I agree with that. Okay.
But I did like the tone and what they're going for. So I'll see if I can finish that. I don't know if I can, but I did like what I saw. Bob, Sorry we've been talking so much. What have you been watching, my guy? All those blues that you buy. I'm sure you watched them all. I know you did.
I watched all that.
Rubber and blues.
And a lot of other shit. A lot of similar stuff. I've watched the season finale of White Lotus season 2. And it's great. If you haven't seen that show, I talked about it the past couple weeks. It's fantastic. It's on HBO. It's each season only like 6-7 episodes. Check it out. It's a great drama, great cast, really fantastic acting and writing, actually. I watched Pinocchio as well on Netflix. It's towards the bottom of my Del Toro movies, to be honest. It is like fucking sad, though. It punches you right in the fucking feelings. The animation looks great, but I don't know that I like really love the story, and I'm not a sell for musicals ever.
Yeah, I'm with you, Bob.
So it was okay. I also watched this movie called Burnt that was on Netflix. It's got Bradley Cooper. He's like one of the best chefs in the world. He falls from grace. He's addicted to drugs. Tries to get back in the game and start up a restaurant in London. And he's like a 2 Michelin star chef. He's going for his 3rd star, and it's sort of like his pursuit of that. It's pretty good, pretty solid, random Netflix movie to throw on. I watched Yule-log as well. It's got problems, but I fucking loved watching it. Like the experience of watching that shit.
I was crammed with stuff.
I was enthralled. Like it had my fucking attention, man. Super cool idea. It's a full-blown horror movie. It's a weird mashup of a bunch of like subgenres. It's definitely got the comedy. It's a low budget, and like you definitely see the budget. You see the strings, so to speak. But I fucking loved it. Like I'll watch it again for sure. It was a lot of fun. I watched The Nanny, or Just Nanny, rather.
Not the
Nanny, Just Nanny. It's on Amazon.
Is Peter Griffin here?
No, thank God, no. That is on Amazon if you want to watch it. It's extremely well crafted. I recommend checking that out. If you have Amazon, there's really no reason not to. It won Sundance, so it's it's worth checking out. I watched The Apology as well. I did not like it. I thought the acting was pretty bad, to be honest.
Oh, really?
I just couldn't get into the movie. Like the acting wasn't there for me.
Huh. Did you finish it?
So I've got like maybe 10 minutes left. I was watching it just before, just before getting on the show, but almost finished it anyways.
Hang on, but is that the woman from Breaking Bad?
It is. Skyler.
I meant to look it up, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So.
I have never heard of this, so I just looked it up, and yes, that's it.
Okay.
It's mainly the dude that I'm just like, this guy is not showing up for me.
Linus Roche?
Really? I thought what he was supposed to be, he gave, but that's whatever.
Yeah. I watched another Shudder original. So The Apology's on Shudder. I watched another one called Blood Relatives. That's a new release on Shudder. It's about a vampire, and he's roaming around the Midwest. It's got kind of like a near dark vibe, but there's not a pack of vampires. It's just one dude.
What was it called?
It's called Blood Relatives.
Oh, okay.
And he's driving around, and this girl tracks him down. And it turns out that she's his daughter, and they sort of have this very awkward relationship they're trying to work through while also being like, vampires and doing vampire shit. It's definitely got a lot of comedy.
Is that Shudder one?
Yeah, it's on Shudder.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's easy to watch. It was decent. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It's kind of down the middle.
Okay.
And finally, I also watched You Won't Be Alone. It was recommended to me by Juice himself. It's an extremely well-crafted movie. The idea, the conceit of the movie is fucking cool, and it's fucking a bummer. It is a bummer of a movie, dude. It moved my ass. I was sitting here, and by the end of the movie, I was sitting over here.
Ass. It physically moved your ass.
It moved my ass.
That's the best kind, boys. Really fuck your soul up.
It fucked my soul right up. That's precisely what happened.
My soul is fucked up.
I was fucked up in the soul.
That's how I like it. Yeah.
The movie, the first like 5 minutes, I think, there's this thing that happens, and I was finding my pearls and clutching the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Where are my pearls?
It's good. It's a fucking bummer though. So just if you want to watch it, know that I think it'll help you a little bit. But that's pretty much all I've been watching. Yeah, we've been cramming in a lot of shit for our next show.
I will say I did a mini cast on that one, but also I just found out that Plug It Up has an episode on it, and I listened to that this week too.
Nice.
Yeah, it was perfect, and it was a really good episode. So if you're curious about this film that we're all kind of talking about, we haven't covered it ourselves. If you want, you can check out my minicast, but also check out Plug It Up's episode on it. Definitely a really good episode.
I got to listen to that myself. Actually, yeah. Shout out to Caitlin. Everything she does is great. Check it out.
Yeah.
That's all I've been watching this week. We don't have any voicemails to play.
Janus, where you at, my guy?
My boy Hugh Janus didn't even call.
Janus.
Looking at you, Lou Sanus. Still no calls. Call in.
I just do horror movie reviews. Al Sanus.
The Janus brothers are letting us down.
Yeah, but if
Bob's really got to hold it together.
Yeah. If you are
to wrap this episode up,
somebody made a joke about
don't think about loose anuses. Don't think about poop comes out of there. Oh my god,
it's so funny.
That's where the poop's from.
It's so funny. It's so fucking funny. If you are listening and would like to call in and leave a voicemail for our next show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. Actually, if you do call in, you're probably not going to make it for our next show. We're actually doubling down this week.
Oh, yeah.
But we will play
and also, it's a top 10. We probably wouldn't have time anyways.
Probably not. We'll play it on the following show. I honestly...
Which will be the new year, right?
It'll be the first episode of the new year.
Holy God.
Jesus
The question
Christ.
I have...
We have... Oh, no. We've left 2020 Deuce behind.
We've left the Deuce behind.
What a great episode where we could say 2020 Deuce.
2020 thrice coming in hot.
Nah.
The question I had was what are some of your favorite horror movies of the year? Chime in because that's what we're talking about next week. So let us know. If you got a top 10, run it down. You know, if you can do it within 3 minutes or less. Anyways,
quick people, quick.
Yep. So
no justify, just supply.
Yeah, we don't,
just we don't care about your reason.
We don't care about your thoughts. Okay,
or give us free content. Okay,
give us free content. You can give us free content at 904-638-3231. We appreciate it. So yeah, next week we're gonna be back with a brand new show as always. We're closing out the year with a 2022 in review. We're talking about our top 10s. We're talking about the worst of. We're gonna get into some honorable mentions as well. It'll be fun. I always look forward to this. It's a fun show. We just shoot the shit.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's just us jabbering on with no context, really.
It's totally unlike our regular episodes.
Right. Very structured.
With all that structure
I'm excited
and whatnot.
Too. I've been working hard on this goddamn list.
Ooh, pat yourself on the back.
I've been working on it for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm still not satisfied with it. So
this year has been nuts too. If any year has been difficult to narrow down a top 10, it's this one.
Yeah. A lot of good shit. I've changed my list.
2020 Deuce. Thank you.
I keep every day I change it. I'm like, no, I don't know what to do. I don't know.
Man.
There's so much. Get ready for next week's show by watching literally every horror movie released within the past year, and you'll be ready for it.
Good luck.
You should be ready for it then.
Yeah.
Bob, at this time, what are you up to?
67 movies, I believe.
Woo,
horror
Bob.
movies.
Oh my Lord!
I just hit 40. I think
I'm at 45. So I've got as listed like 6. I hope to end by the year. 1 I got to get by tomorrow.
Nice.
I've got like a list of 10 that I was like, maybe I'll get to these, but I don't think so.
Not now, anyways. Not now.
Yeah.
Until next week, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send an email to us at straightchillingpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to join in on our daily Slack channel conversations, just send a message to one of our social media outlets, and I'll send you a link so you can do so. Until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
Hello?